Now I think it's time we hear what the commentators have to say. Commentators, could you please come forward and take a seat?
I think this project was really good because it makes me to think about the essential aspects of human sense and moral values that which are really considered in ordinary days. And now I'm gonna say some good points and there's some points which would be better corrected. First, good points that this paper is based on the novel of Gani's The Plague, and this could be a flaw because if there's a reader who haven't read the novel, they might have trouble reading this paper and then reading this paper. And in this point, this paper presents a very good understanding. Actually, I haven't read this novel, but I really have difficulties related with understanding the content and the flow of the novel. I think his analysis was really fine. And the second good point was that his focus and explanation about relativism was fine because he uses the term the speaker relativism, which means that the interpretation of the situation, behavior, and the statements are real and remembered. And in this point, the interpretation of all that he focuses on some moral egoism was really refreshing and interesting. And also and one more good point is that he said his own some philosophical concepts and he rejects some professional papers that said like he said that could be some universal egoism, but this is one of the reject of the professional papers. So I think it's really good try for study, and there's some points that would be better corrected. That first is there's a lot of philosophical concepts and theories which makes understanding this paper difficult. There were a lot of concepts and various professionals, and this makes and there's a lot of some unfamiliar words and theories, and that could make the listeners puzzled. And I think this paper could be better if Mr. O selects more essential theories and rejects the things that are not. This could make the paper more clear. Also, I'm curious about the opinion that universal egoism can make sense. Actually, the presentation was based on the novel The Plague, and as the presentator said, this is an exceptional situation that only can occur in the controlled society or experiments. Actually, there's a lot of novels that are also focusing on the post-war situation and the problems of the early 20th century's moral problems, like some Japanese writer, Osamu Dazai's like Human Lost. But however, the characters of that novels are all personal egoists. They're concentrate on their problems and themselves, and in the mechanism, in that novels, there's no space or possibility of universal egoism. And these were the case of the novel, but what would be in the real world? Could the theory of Mr. O could be applied in the real world? I think it would be much better if additional research which focuses on the real world and other novels is conducted. It will be a worthy project, and thanks for listening.
The thesis, which is based on the plague, deals with considerably technical concepts. Although there are some more concepts which can be controversial, there is a lot of detailed information about the book's plot for readers who haven't read it before. After reading this thesis, I would like to point out some odd elements in your thesis. First, I want to talk about your reputations on universal egoism. In your viewpoint, the Rembert's case was an example to prove on universal egoism. However, I want to ask, what if Rembert had judged the society should recover preferentially to satisfy his own personal egoism? That means, what if he thought the society as a tool, so was he trying to cure? This act can be shown as the first step of individual self-fulfillment, not as altruism. And this argument can be seen in Professor Lee's thesis. He says, there is no such ideology as authorism. If altruistic act was committed, it is said to be a mere coincidence, as individuals are busy pursuing their own interest. And this can be shown in second previous research on Professor Lee's refutation of Lee's universal egoism. Second, in your research and about research questions and our hypothesis part, I wondered about assertion A among the 4 hypothetical assertions. That hypothetical assertions A, hierarchical order systems that propose a universal solution fell under an unexpected situation like disease or natural disaster might not be considered as an assertion because this sentence is that assumption was the biggest presupposition in the book's plot. But also, if it's your opinion that had an intervention in story analysis from the beginning, and that can result a paradoxical situation. Third, there are some dangerous transformations and results in discussion part. Here it is stated, in summary, all individuals have some separate moral systems that they build by themselves, so there are no regulations on what they should or should not pursue. But this concept infringes the basic concept of individualism. In the dictionary, that individualism defines like this: an ism that adopts an ideal that realm of personal free action doesn't infringe upon other individual area, and eventually it will retard their society and they will lose their interest also. In conclusion, those are some lacking points in your thesis, and I hope more your own assertions about the book should be attached. Thank you.
Thank you, commentators. Is there anyone in the audience who has a question on this paper?
I have the reason why I ask you a question is to understand the relationship between egoism and relativism more clearly. You said the universal egoism claims that all beings should act in their profit maximization. Then, depending on your idea, can I understand universal egoism as the part of the relativism under the reason that we should respect others' profits or others' thoughts?
I think you could understand it as that, because I have stated in my research that individualism was born through the plague, and that individualism developed into egoism and relativism. And I further stated that relativism provides the theoretical background to egoism. So yeah, you could say that.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your presentation. And I have a question about the distinction between Tarot and Rombel. Given Rombel's egoism is embraced by relativism, they seem similar in that they all pursue individual goals. Then how do you differentiate those two?
I would say that the motive behind their actions would have been different. Like, for example, Tarot saw the society as a whole as moron, and from the start he wanted to help the individuals. However, Rambert's change, he was actually an egoist before, came from within himself. No external influences were there in his change from an egoist to a relativist. So I would say that Tarot is a relativist to the heart, and Rambert is a relativist, an egoist to the heart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For your presentation, I have a question. I think the definition of moralism is a little ambiguous between societal moralism and individual moralism. So can you make sure the difference between the societal moralism and individual moralism?
Okay. Let's say an example, like you can't kill people. Maybe a different example. Alright. It's alright. If you've been listening to my speech before, I told you about the dog and the park, if that's more appropriate. Let's say there's a law, like a societal concept that you need to pick up after your dog. Like, it's for the societal good. It's for the society and for the well-being of the streets and the park. In that case, it could be considered a societal moral. However, if you have individual morals, you're free to choose whether to pick up your dog's waste or whether not to pick it up. It's for your individual gain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then, is there anyone else in the audience who has a question? Yes, John? Wait for the mic.
Hi.
Hi.
I really appreciated your presentation.
Thank you.
Did you say it was Rambert or Tarot that was originally an egoist that changed?
That was Rambert.
Rambert. You said they changed without any external influence at all.
Not that I have seen staged into book.
Do you not think that the plague itself is the external force that influenced all of the characters?
Well, then primarily, Rambert would have to be a relativist first, because he sought for his individual happiness. He wanted to get out first. But then he made this change to stay. So there has to be some external situation then to say that. Like, the plague was initially a force of change for Rambert, for his decision to stay as an egoist, as to get out. But what I'm talking about here is the reasons why he chose not to go when he had the opportunity.
Okay, so the plague wasn't an influence in changing him from an egoist to...
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, time is up, everyone. The speakers and the commentators may return to their seats. Thank you.